Hello, my friend. I am CharLee Simons, your host here on Do Not Talk. Talk about two things you're never supposed to talk about, politics and religion. Talking to the people you're not supposed to talk to. Talking about things I'm not supposed to talk about. After a lifetime in the radio and television business, working for two big networks, ABC and CBS, and just had a great career. But then come COVID, changed everything. And I was at a point in my life and at an age that I just thought, you know what? After the company I was working for at the time, Salem Media Group, great company, I loved it. And I understand why they had to do what they had to do to stay solvent. When businesses were shut down and not allowed to open, of course, they weren't going to advertise anymore. And the Salem Media Group, unlike the other big networks, relies mostly on local advertising in whatever market that they own. And they're all major markets. Sacramento is their smallest market. Most of them are gigantic. New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle. Those are the kind of markets that they own their radio stations in. And so they're relying on local advertising instead of the big ad dollars from national buys. So you're not going to hear a Coca-Cola ad on there. You're not going to hear big pharma ads on Salem Media Group stations, thank God. And when, especially in California, Governor Hairdo shut down all the local businesses because they were deemed non-essential. The mom and pops, the family owned and operated, the middle class folks, they were not essential. Just the big corporations were able to stay open. All for our safety, to protect us. Salem Media Group found themselves in very big trouble because the businesses were canceling their advertising contracts even because they're like, we can't even open. And we don't know how long it's going to be this way. Turned out a couple of years. How many businesses went under? Awful. You're still seeing the results of it. And Salem Media Group had to let hundreds of us go all across the country on the same day. April 15th, as a matter of fact, tax day in 2020. What a day. So it was about that time I thought, I'm going to get into this whole podcasting thing that I keep hearing about. It's just one more thing that's not going to make me any money, but that's okay. At least I'll have the freedom. Well, I thought I did. Facebook has deleted every single one of my pages. So is Instagram, which is owned by Facebook. YouTube, I've got 2 strikes against me. 1 more, I'm out. This show today with Juan O'Savin may be the 3rd strike on YouTube. That's okay. I would consider that a badge of honor. I first became aware of Juan O'Savin through a friend of mine, Simone Anderson. She started talking about him when I was up at a New California State thing in Northern California. And yes, that's real. Looking to split up this state. And I think that's a great idea. Because right now we have taxation without representation. And you got San Francisco and Los Angeles, Sodom and Gomorrah, basically with their huge population bases, deciding the future of all of us here in California. And many of us don't want that. We didn't vote for that. So we're splitting. We're leaving. And that's New California State. Look it up. It's a real deal and very viable. And I hope it happens. So anyway, I'm at this event covering it. And that's where I got to meet Joe Hoft, as a matter of fact, which was a really nice treat. And Laura Logan. And my friend Simone kept talking about this guy, Juan O'Savin. I do a podcast, but that doesn't mean I watch others. I'll check out the X22 Report guy, and I'll watch Dan Bongino and so on, but I've never been a conspiracy theory guy, although now I believe I probably am, because like General Flynn says, conspiracy theory just is fact 6 months before everybody finds out about it. I'm paraphrasing. So she kept talking about Juan O'Savin. Oh, he does these deep dives things, and he knows so much, and he does this, and he does that. And I don't know him. Turns out he doesn't even have his own podcast. He's a guest on other people's shows, and he's very private. He doesn't show his face when he's on these shows. You never see him. So then I found out Juan was going to be a guest speaker, keynote speaker at an event in North Carolina. I'm just a po-folk good old boy from Bakersfield out in California. Never even been to North Carolina, but I always thought I'd like to see it someday. So I put together some money, got out my credit card, bought a ticket, and flew out to North Carolina to be there because Juan O'Savin was going to be at this event. It's the whole reason why I went to Awake and Bold. It's awakeandbold.org if you want to look them up too. They're doing great work fighting against child sex trafficking. And that was the focus of the entire thing. I got to meet Juan. He's a tall guy. I'm a big guy. He makes me look small. He's a big man. And he's a good looking dude. No homo. He's a good looking dude though. He and his wife were there and they knocked me out. When he did his thing, he was supposed to get it, I think, for 45 minutes. He went for an hour and 45. I was mesmerized. I was riveted. And then he prayed. He prayed for all of us and for the nation and for the world at the end of his talk. The whole thing was about sex trafficking of children, using children throughout history. And he tied it in with biblical Old Testament stuff, even into the New Testament stuff, where Jesus said, you jack with these kids, it'd be better for you to have a heavy millstone tied around your neck and to be cast into the sea. As I point out a lot, too, Jesus didn't say it'd be better for you to do that to yourself. He said it would be better if it were done to you. I have been on board for a while against this whole child sex trafficking thing, doing whatever I can to bring information to you. Here's what's really going on, and here's how bad it is. But Juan revealed things during that speech at the Awake and Bold conference that I didn't even know about. And it was terrifying, actually, in many ways, very terrifying. When you realize the enormity of it all. So I kept asking Juan, please go on the air with me. I'm set up right over there. Please come over and go on there. Well, he had everybody swarming him both days, Saturday and Sunday. I couldn't get him away. I couldn't get him to go on the air with me, but he made me a promise. He said, I will go on your show. I'm sorry it didn't happen this weekend, but I will. I promise you I will. And he's made good on his promise because he's on my show today. And if you've been following him, you know a lot more than I do. I've only seen a couple things he's done on other people's shows. I've watched as much as I could find. He's kind of like that hidden gem and that diamond in the rough. That once you find him, it's like, bam. How does he know all that he knows, though? Where did he get the knowledge? Where did he get his experience? Why is he so secretive? How come he doesn't show his face? Like I said, he's a good-looking guy. He could get a huge following. He could make a lot of money if he wanted to do his own show and go on like that. But he's not even interested. So I want to know more about him. If we get into other discussions of things that are going on in the world, fantastic. I got all kinds of questions for him about that. But first, I want to know about him. So let's do that now on Do Not Talk. Are you ready? Hit it.
Yeah! Woo!
Hello, my friend.
Hey, how you doing there?
I'm borderline amazing. You followed through on your promise. I'm going to tell you right now how many people have promised me they'd be on my show, and then they never, ever follow through. Steve Hilton being one of them. There's a lot of them who say, oh, yeah, I'll do your show. Absolutely. Chad Bianco's another one. They say they're going to be on my show, but then they don't. They don't follow through. You did, and I thank you for it.
Well, I apologize we couldn't get to it while we're at the meeting the other day, but as you said, there's just so many people there, and I was trying to spend time with people there and that. So, and I apologize for my voice. I was yelling at the TV screen, I think, too much or something. So, my voice is a little bit gone.
So while we're waiting for Juan to come back on, I wanted to encourage you to go to my website, please. Buy some merchandise, like this big old 15-ounce mug. I got big hands. Look at that. I can fit all my four fingers in that big old mug. Let's talk about politics and religion. Do not talk. Come on, you can do it. Put your back into it. Don't be scared. Drink out of this mug at work. And I got hats, I got shirts, I got a lot of mugs. And you'll be helping the show stay on the air. You'll be helping me grow, as a matter of fact. If you can go to my website at charleesimons.com. That's CharLeeSimons, charleesimons.com, and buy some merchandise there, would you please? I'd appreciate it. Hello, Juan. How do we sound now?
Well, sounds a little bit sketchy, not as bad, but I have full bars, so I don't know what the issue is. Real stream, all of them. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not, so I don't know what the issue is. Apologies.
No worries. I'm just glad you're here. So, as I said in the intro, I know you have a fount of knowledge. I don't know a lot about you, though. I want to know about you. I know you're a very secretive person. I don't know what you can share, or what you cannot, or will not, or be willing to share. Tell us though about you. Where did you grow up? How did you get to the point now to where you are able to disseminate so much great information to so many people?
There's a lot there. The main thing is that I work.
Juan, can you hear me?
On property taxes in school districts across the country with
Juan. Damn it. This is a lot of why I wanted to get him on when I was actually there in person, because I could be guaranteed that this wouldn't happen. And if you're watching live right now, my apologies to you. It's obviously nothing I can do. I'm going to call him, see if I can get him on the phone. I'll literally just hold the phone up to the microphone.
Please leave your message.
All right, I've got Juan on the phone. Hopefully you can hear this well enough, but I'm just going to do it the old school way. I've done interviews like this all those years on the radio. Sometimes you couldn't get them through the phone line of the studio. So I just call them and hold the phone up to the microphone. Whatever. You don't know. You can't see. But now, unfortunately, on television here, you can actually see what this is going on. Oh, Charlie, look at him. He looks like such a rank amateur. And so you're not paying for this. What do you care? Hello, Juan. Welcome back.
Yeah.
At the end of that event in North Carolina, the Awaken Bold conference, you said a prayer. You said a prayer for all of us. Now, I know a lot of people who are in your position who have knowledge, have experience, but there's a lot on our side. A lot of folks on the right. Used to be you just assumed everyone was Christian, or at least had biblical values, conservative values, equal biblical values as far as I'm concerned, because of the beginning of this nation. We are definitely blessed by God. I believe that this nation was founded on biblical principles. In fact, I know it if you look at the early forefathers' writings. But not many are actually believers and followers of Christ Jesus. You obviously are. When did that happen? How old were you?
Oh, I was, went to Sunday school and church from a very, very young age, but didn't actually formally get born again until I was about 13, I think. And, Christ shocked everybody when he said to the apostles and to those gathered around him that in order to get to heaven, enter the kingdom of heaven, they had to be born again. And one of the people looked at him all astonished. How in the world did somebody get born again, go back in their mother's womb? What kind of crazy talk is this? But like so many things, people were hearing him in a physical realm, and they weren't listening in a spiritual realm. And, Christ was being very precise. They had to die to the physical world and be reborn in the spiritual world. And Christ in our place as the payment for sin, and then being rebirthed, reborn as a child of God Almighty, without sin, by the blood of Christ, and so born again. And one of the interesting things I was mentioning the other day, I think at the conference, Peter and the apostles were all gathered around Christ, and people were asking the apostles who Jesus was and speculating who he was. And Christ said to the apostles, he said, who do men say that I am? And they said, some of them say that you're Elijah reborn, great prophet. Some of them say that you're John the Baptist, who had been killed, beheaded, while Christ was ministering, after Christ was baptized by him. And so they just didn't know. Then Christ turned to Peter, one of the 12 apostles, and he said, who do you say that I am? And Peter said, you're the Son of God, the Messiah. And Christ said to him, he said, flesh and blood hath not revealed this to you, but the Spirit of God manifests this and helps you to understand this. The reason that's important, we don't have even the faculties to fully grasp and understand, what God's doing, life itself. It's God calling us. And Peter didn't hear from men, didn't even hear from Christ. Christ was in the flesh. It was God taking on flesh, putting it on like we put on a coat, and then walking amongst us. But within that flesh and blood experience, there was still something beyond that was spiritual in the heart of Peter, that he heard from God, heard the voice of God in his heart, and understood a truth that you couldn't have gotten because everybody else explained it. You talked, you had to, read a book, whatever. That's much of the Christian experience. When I said the prayer at that event, one of the things I asked for is that God would reveal himself to each person there, and that God is faithful, that if we ask from him bread or something important is needed, he won't give us a stone. He won't shrug and turn away. He inclines his ear to us when we seek him out. God is as serious as you are. If you're seriously seeking him, he is seriously right there for you. And so I may give a message, I may share some biblical truths, some life experiences, things like that. But at the end of the day, you still need to seek him out yourself and meet him personally. And through his son, Jesus Christ. And, Christ said something else interesting. He said, I and the Father am one. He who has seen me has seen the Father. As I said, God putting on human flesh like we put on a coat, and then walking amongst us, and then dying in our place to pay the price of sin so we can be reconciled with him. There was nobody perfect to pay the penalty of sin. Everybody had to pay it for themselves. He steps in, does it himself because he's the only one that can do it, and then offers the gift of life for free, no price. Just accept it and be born again. And that's at the core of everything that exists. that you get to meet and walk with God again. Everything else is peripheral in this world.
Juan does not charge when he goes to speak at these events. He doesn't get money for it. He doesn't get a fee. And like I said, he doesn't even have a show. I don't know how he makes money, how he makes a living. That's up to him to, if he wants to share that. But the bottom line is he volunteers his time and he gives freely. Freely we receive, so freely we give. I have that same attitude, so I respect that and I recognize that. But many of us on our side seem to be the very intellectual crowd that seems to reject God. They've almost made themselves God. They're above any of that, and they start using other names, the source, the great spirit, the world, the universe energy, and so on. I'm like, well, wait a minute. That great source has a name, and it's Christ Jesus, and it's the name above all names, and it's the most powerful of them all. And by not recognizing him and giving him that acknowledgement, what did he die for? Why was he tortured horribly and murdered and then resurrected for nothing? So you can call it the source. The source has a name. Have you been frustrated by that, by people on our side of the aisle?
Well, let me just mention the one thing. Paul, the apostle, the early apostles were all people that walked with Christ, who were familiar with him and seen him in the flesh. And so there's cause to believe that Paul, the Pharisees, who was present when Christ was ministering at some point, was familiar with all the dramas. But Paul had his Damascus Road experience where Christ appeared to him, and then he said something like scales fell from his eyes. And by the way, when Mel Gibson's new movie, The Resurrection, comes out,
which I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, he has a scene that I think will be central to the entire movie. It's like a huge build-up to it. And in that scene, he came up with a very unique way of depicting and visualizing this that's never been done in movies before. And it was something where I think God gave him an inspiration. It's such a crucial, critical event of how it actually appeared and occurred for Paul in that, cataclysmic moment of being able to see Christ the Savior, who he had been attacking through his believers, and to realize that he was attacking Christ, not just these people. And but Paul, when he ministered, he made a big point out of the fact that he never took offerings or alms for himself. He made a big point of the fact that he was a tent maker, and so when he'd come to a town, he would work by day making tents, because that was his skill set. And then he ministered on the days off and in the evenings at his own expense. So there was no, passing the offering plate just to pay for him to be able to sleep somewhere for what he had to say. And I've been able to meet my own needs, and we do some things. Jen has her store, and she's got some silver coins and art that she's done and other things. Of course, I wrote my book and have that out there. But I can assure you that it, is a tiny fraction of what we spend a year in the stuff that I've been doing. we're well into the six figures, already this year on stuff that we have to do. So it's not for free, and but it's a gift to be able to take the time to do the things that we get to do with the public and believers. So yeah, with that in mind, you went someplace else just now with the rest of the comments. You were there, you heard it. I was very concerned at the Awakened Bold because one of the things that happened, we had some interesting, important, beautiful speakers. The terminology that was being used in these conversations was unsettled. And the reason it bothered me is because it was terms that related to Mother Earth, to grounding with, Mother Earth and all these other kinds of things. As though the Earth was an entity. And then there was, terms thrown around ascension, ascended masters, things like that. Now, in prior Awakened Bold, you didn't have that. It was a different flavor. And the people involved, some of them very young Christians, just within the last year or two. So they really didn't know. They were trying to get important stuff out on child trafficking and combating it. And then there was other people who were speakers that, have a history in that field. But again, using terminology that was, for me, not just that it was unacceptable, but it was misinformed. And so I took time and explained to a number of the people who were present, including the speakers, who were very receptive and didn't fight on this. They didn't understand. And I said, these are terms that come right out of witchcraft, right out of Wiccans.
Preach it.
They were using terminologies and ways of describing things that were Eastern religion and totally not of Christ, not biblical. And I was pointing out that with one of the products, you're seeing a physical effect, which I spent a lot of time explaining and describing from the other physics that's not taught in the public schools, but it's a very real area you have to be invited to learn because it has the potential to be morphed into very dangerous weapons. And I said, so you're seeing something that's quite real, that we have extensive documentation on, that is a field effect. But it's not a spiritual thing. It's not, it may have an effect on you spiritually, but it's not of itself source or origins or whatever. It's no more spiritual than atoms, than a magnetic field or an electrical field. If I was to electrify a light bulb, say electromagnetic field, 2 or 3 or 500 or 1,000 years ago, to the uninitiated, it would look like magic. I could do all sorts of things with electricity and magnetism, with photons, if I had the right equipment, that would create illusions that if I decided to describe it in a spiritual realm to someone who didn't understand the physics involved, it would look like, magic or some kind of, I could give a spiritual explanation. When the ancient occult practitioners knew there was an eclipse coming because they knew how to map eclipses, they would build up tension in a society. They would do things that caused everybody to get in great angst, and then they would say that the gods, the spirits, whatever way you wanted to do it, were going to judge. They were going to do something in the Mayan and Aztec cultures. They set up huge offerings. And in the midst of these offerings of people, sacrificing people, cutting the hearts out of people alive, and doing it, coming up on and during eclipses, solar events. It looked like the gods ran through them, moving the heavens around. But they just happen to know how to map days, times, and celestial movements to anticipate a solar eclipse, a lunar eclipse. No magic about it, but to the uninitiated, it was easy to fool them. The effects that a lot of these people are seeing and even have products built around is a very tangible, real physics. And to then attribute some spiritual, awakening, grounding, and healing, and everything else, it's a field effect. And the scripture that applies is where people worshiped the creation, not the creator. And I pointed this out, and in fact, the folks that put on the Awakened Gold have been lobbying to get together to kind of go through the semantics. What's meant by the words we use, what's accurate. And an example of semantics for people that haven't had to think about this before. I can say to you that Air Force defeated Army in an air attack. Immediately your mind would go, say, to Iran or some other military fight. But I wasn't talking about armies and aircraft on. I was just talking about the Army Air Force football game.
Right.
And the fact that there was a passive attack. You need a little bit of context. And if we're going to look at products, effects, things like that, let's not give the devil any credit for stuff that he has nothing to do with. It's just the physics of the world we live in. And so we will talk about that, some of those folks, and try to address this problem where there's a misunderstanding of just like the chakras in Eastern religion, there are absolutely pressure points in the body that affect the way the body works. But it's not spiritual the way many people try to put it. It is an actual physical effect in the way that neurons react, electrons flow, the physiology of the body. But, you may, there's aspects of physical contact, things like that there is a spiritual side of it. But the way that they describe what they're doing and seeing and feeling generally is not that. So I talked extensively on this, and I did not get any pushback from anyone that was present as I went through. I mean, that was 3 hours of presentation. We're trying to reduce it down to a minute or two, but I laid out a lot of the history within the physics, old and new, to understand how you can track these physiological actions and reactions. And you heard it, of course.
And if you were one of the over 5,000 people who watched that show I posted of Juan when he was live at that event, and that's what he was talking about in the very beginning. He spent a good 20, 25 minutes just answering back to the two guests who had gone on before him. There was a group there at the event, Moms for Liberty, and I love them. I respect them. I admire them. And they're a strong Christian group and a conservative group, and their battle has always been about protecting the children. So it made sense that they were there. But they were so offended by those two guests who went up to speak before you got there that they left. They literally left. And everybody was all outraged and, oh, how judgmental of them. And then Juan hits the stage and goes, hey, you people who were on before me, here's why you're all off base. And he started explaining exactly what he just explained to us. And I admired that so much. I went, oh, my goodness, this guy's the real deal, Holyfield. So I appreciate that you did that and that you had that boldness. Thank you very much.
Well, and I'd love to talk maybe with the folks from Moms for Liberty that they were not wrong with not wanting to lend their credentialing to something that was in opposition on its face to their Christian values. And in defense of the people that came on, they truly didn't understand, I don't think, where they were out of step. And that's why we had the conversation we did, and more to come. But it's common within even the Patriot community in a broader sense that there's some misunderstandings within terminology. The devil's always there to hijack anything that God's people do.
There it is.
So, I've been in not just one, but many churches over the years where the pastors and the staff were so far off base, and the congregation was being taken off base because of the way they thought believed, and that had no resemblance to me of our Christian basic understanding. Some of the churches, before you could be a member, and I think rightfully so, you have to attend some kind of a catechism, a class, to learn the basics of what that congregation believes. And before you get to be a member, you can attend all you want. But if you want to be a member of the church, you need to understand and agree with certain core ideas and principles. And otherwise, you're not a good match for that body. And that's healthy, because it's one thing to accept Christ into your heart, your life, accept the substitution of Christ and his death for your own, and then to be born again, Spirit of God in your life as a new creation, a new creature, and begin to walk out faith in this world, and to try to live by faith according to God's will in an upright way. Doesn't mean you're perfect day one, but then you learn. You go into what we kind of, kiddingly call the school of the Holy Spirit. And people that have been a Christian for a year, 5 years, 20 years, 50 years, you're constantly, if it's real, growing in understanding and in the truth. And you're still making mistakes. You're still in the world, but not of the world. You're trying to understand and do and walk out a faith-filled life. Well, takes time, and things that you knew while you were in the world, over time, you might not have understood the meaning of some things, but as you mature and grow, you gain understanding, and then there's things that you may have thought were of no big deal or no consequence, and over time you learn these things, and then weed them out of your life, clear them out of your talk, because the devil just loves if he can fool you with his magic to do his will, his way, naively. And I think that was much of what was occurring with these other speakers, and they were very receptive to have the rest of the conversation, trying to figure it out. Think of Paul, the apostle, after he had the Damascus Road experience, and the scales fell from his eyes. He spent 15 years unlearning and relearning his understanding of the scriptures. And when this happened, when he had this Damascus Road experience, he was a Pharisee's Pharisee. He was as knowledgeable about the law and temple operations and Judaism, spirituality, etc., as any of them. He was extremely diligent in understanding and knowing the scriptures, the Old Testament. But his viewpoint was tainted. And that 15 years was needed to unlearn all of the things that had been taught by men, which had nothing to do with what God wanted. Even though he grew up in the temple, even though he grew up amongst the faithful. And he had to relearn it in the light of the fact that the Messiah, the promised Messiah, had actually come and nobody saw him. They didn't understand. They didn't understand that he came as a sacrifice to die in our place first, and not as a conquering king to take over the world.
Which is what they believed, and they had ascertained from the Torah, yeah.
And so he had to relearn in the light of what God had given him for knowledge, just like Peter. Flesh and blood hath not revealed this to you, but the Spirit of God will. Everybody else thought Christ was Elijah reborn, John the Baptist reincarnated, something like that. And only Peter, of all the 12 apostles and of all the people gathered around Christ, understood that he was the Son of God and that there was something else going on. Peter then was able to relate this information as his ministry grew later on. Remember, Peter, in his boldness, was the first apostle to give an altar call.
As it,
House was next door to the temple.
and how long did Paul have to reason with them from their own scriptures that they were so well educated in, and went, look at this, you missed this point right here. How did you not understand that? And it had to be frustrating because he would point it all out to them the way it was pointed out to him, and now he's trying to get that information and pass it along to his own fellow brothers and sisters in Judaism. And they didn't want to hear it, and not only did they not want to hear it to where they wouldn't listen anymore, but they reacted with violence. They went after him with violence. Have you had anything like that happen with you and what you do?
Uh, yeah, someday I'll tell some of the stories. I'm thinking if I can say one. Yeah, I probably should pass for now, but I had one that stands out, but I probably should pass for the same. So.
You're not okay. You're not. You don't want to. You're not. You can't share it with us. All right.
I don't think it would. It's the time to tell this one. But,
okay. All right.
I was thinking. I was debating, thinking about it. I mentioned it in private, but I don't think I would pronounce it.
No, I've not heard the story that you're thinking about, but I'm new to the Juan O'Savin world, and so I want to know more about you. I didn't know that you'd written a book. Even tell us about that.
Well, Kid by the Side of the Road, and it's sold many hundreds of thousands of copies. And so there's, it's an unusual book in its size and the pictures like that. We have a follow-on. We actually have 2 follow-ons coming up very shortly, but I don't want to give them dates. And so that'll be there pretty soon. In fact, I'm going to be in Florida with the editing team on both the books here shortly, finalizing them, and I don't know how long they'll take, but it'll be at least weeks. But yeah, looking at things coming.
That's very exciting. Juan O'Savin, what's the significance of the name? I'm pretty certain that's not your real name.
Well, I've mentioned a little bit here and there, but it's I did have an earlier life as a contractor, and that was an assigned number, and for things that I did, and then later on in a particular incident in South America, I had to come up with a cover on a few moments' notice, and I just blurted out, Juan O'Savin was my agent number, and it stuck. It was a very transient thing. One thing led to another, and so much of the work that I did at other times was under. So that's my author name.
That was your code name.
In that particular thing, yeah.
That's pretty cool. Well, I would love to sit down and have cigars, and I don't know if you drink whiskey, but I enjoy a Scots whiskey, single malt, please. Nice and peaty. That's kind of like, give me a Lafroig or something, and any kind of cheap cigar. I don't really care. I'm not particular. But it'd be fun to sit down or just have a discussion with you. I'm sure it would go for hours. But right now you're on the road, you got things to do, you got places to be, and you took the time to go on the air with me, and despite all of our technical problems, you stuck with it. You didn't go, screw that CharLee guy, he's all jacked up. Well, I appreciate your patience very much, and thank you so much for your time, my friend.
For sure, I'm glad to do it. Maybe when we have one of the next books out, we can come back and I'll visit with you on it and give you some more detailed history and stuff we can reference to.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you, buddy. Safe travels to you. May God bless you and keep you.
All right. Thanks, folks.
Thank you, buddy. I don't know how much of that you could even hear. I don't know if you stuck with me. It's been my experience doing this show now for 5 years at least, that when I start talking about stuff about faith in Christ Jesus, a lot of the conspiracy theory loving those who call themselves on the right go away. They don't want to hear about it, but that's just been my experience. Maybe it's me. They don't want to hear about from me, possibly. But hopefully you listen to it from Juan O'Savin. It was great getting him on. I'm sorry we had all those problems and difficulties, but hopefully you could hear what he had to say and you learned something from it. We're able to get something effective from it and important. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Please go to my website, charleesimons.com. Buy some merchandise. You can actually contribute, help this ministry continue and grow even. All at charleesimons.com. You can contact me. You can book a guest slot for the show. You can be on yourself. Heck yeah, I'll listen to what you have to say. Even if you want to answer back something that Juan talked about. CharleeSimons.com. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. But most importantly, America bless God.